Today we are discussing and focusing on getting information on challenging environment for women in conservation and how they address these challenges to meet the required expectations at work and also get achievements for their work. So I'll introduce my panel from my far left. Anne Wamboi, she introduced herself as part of the program. She's a conservation officer for Mugi Conservancy, that is in northern Kenya. Then we have Catherine Wambani. She's a conservation manager. She's a manager for Kenya Wildlife Service, the Western Conservation Area. Yeah, the only female manager. There are 8 conservation areas in Kenya under KWS, and she's the only female among the managers. Karibu. Then we have Redempta Njeri. She's the Impact and Learning Manager at Gravis Zebra Trust. She also has a previous experience in human-wildlife conflict mitigation, working for Kenya Wildlife Service, and also as over 5 years experience working with SMART and EarthRanger. So welcome, ladies. So I will start with Madam. Yeah, so you got into the Kenya Wildlife Service as a ranger. Yeah, and so you've risen through the years to become a conservation manager for the areas. So maybe you can tell us what is it that you've done different and how the transition has been for you over the years as a woman.
Thank you for the question. Hi, everyone.
It's a long story, but I got into conservation principally because I did not want to do anything with what girls and women were doing. That's how I grew up. In primary school, my secondary school, my high school, I was looking for opportunities to be very far from what girls and women were doing. And what they were doing was teaching and nursing and being secretary, and I didn't want that. So when there was an opportunity for advertisement for the courses around the colleges in Kenya, then I looked at the range of it, and Egerton was offering wildlife, and I thought that would take me very far. And that's how I got into conservation. And so my entry into the wildlife career was at an assistant warden level. That's the lowest of the warden's level. I was then 23 years. Ladies and gentlemen, when we were admitted into college, into the wildlife, the first week we were thrown into a tent. I had never seen a tent. I had never set up a tent. And I think to the joy of the group that we were with, looking at me suffering at night, one of my pegs, I don't know what happened to it, it fell, and I slept in that tent until morning. And I'm alive today, over 30 years. So that's how I got into conservation. I later realized that that was part of the orientation for us to make a choice as to whether we wanted to continue with the wildlife training or to change. Can I stop there for now?
No, continue.
I continue. Because there's a part I have left out. When we were doing the interviews, after making the choices of the courses, when we were doing the interviews, all of the criteria I knew, but there's one criteria that I didn't meet. I was short. And the guy at the bank, the height that said, she is short. And I had somebody who I later on learned was the head of the department say, but she's the only girl. So that's how I got it. I was the only girl on the line. And for 3 years training, I was the only girl. And So today I didn't find it strange to be among men and to be among the boys. And so boys, we can be brothers, and we can be dads, and we can do conservation together because that's the way God set it, and that's the way nature would want it to be done. Thank you very much. And given that you work in the northern Kenya, an area that you come from different parts of Kenya, went to work in northern Kenya. So I ask you, what are some of the major challenges that you faced, and how have you been able to address them?
Thank you for the question. Like she stated, I work at the Mugi Conservancy. It's located in the far Laikipia County, the northwest part of the county. For my case, I come from the central part of Kenya. For those who understand the geographical location of Kenya, I come from the central part of Kenya. And myself, working on the northern part of Kenya, where the communities, the language, the culture is different, was quite difficult for me. From where I work with the pastoralist communities, the Pokots, Turkanas, and Samburus. Our cultures, our languages are quite different. And so, and the setup is quite different because women have no voice when it comes to decision-making efforts or meetings. Everything is done by men, and the first-hand information in any decision-making in regards to the community or anything, it's all dependent on men. So the first roadblock I got was the culture shock, because you couldn't be allowed to talk where men are. You couldn't be allowed to dress how you wish to dress. Women have a specific way of dressing. So, and it was a challenge for me before I adapted and got to learn their culture and assimilate how they do for me to work there. The second challenge, or the second roadblock, I would say, is security in the region. Sometimes we experience so many insecurities. And for you as a woman working, and conservation is field work, so you cannot conserve something that you're not seeing. So you have so many field works, and you have to go and meet the animals and the people together. So sometimes it's a matter of security. You cannot just drive all alone. You cannot just go for field work all alone. So I appreciate men who are still in conservation, who supports us and are eagerly and are willing to take us for the field works, and we're able to accomplish what you're supposed to do. The other thing, maybe I find a roadblock, maybe between it touches all the women, especially if you have a family, young kids, and you have to balance work. And everything have to move on smoothly. So sometimes it's you have to sacrifice a lot to make that thing work out. Thank you for the question.
Okay, so Red Delta, having come this far, and in your experience in conservation, you've transitioned from working for KWS to now NGOs. Also, you started implementation of SMART and now EarthRanger. So what are the opportunities that you've been able to take up, and how do you think women are able to find these opportunities, and how are they able to leverage on them as well?
Hello everyone. Yeah, thank you for that question. And I think one of the most, the transitioning from Kenya Wildlife Service, working for the government, and also working for the NGOs, because I worked in KWS for over 5 years, and then at Space for Dance also over 5 years, and then I moved to Brave Zebra Trust. I feel like there's each organization has got such a unique need that they meet in a way. And for the government, when you're working for the government, you've got a very big picture of what is expected. So you're likely to look things on a higher scale as compared to NGOs where you become very specific. But for sure, I feel like in terms of opportunities when it comes to technology adoption, NGOs are very quick to adopt, and if you introduce, for example, an app, they'll be quick to kind of move compared to government, because they're thinking how are they going to implement maybe, for example, smart and a high scale. But I think the experience I got now with Space for Giants during the trainings, at first, the first smart implementation was at Lesaba Conservancy. The rangers were fearing like we are going to track them, so there was that resistance of like how you want to be monitoring us, you want, are you listening to what we are saying? But then when we explain to them like this is something that is going to help you and help everybody to be able to appreciate what you do, it's something that is going to help give feedback to the management, somehow they were convinced. And I think I would like to point out that I was also shocked by the culture at the Northern, because I did not expect people not to like, the literacy levels are quite lower, and you find that guys you're training, the guys who are willing so much to be able to learn, they are not literate. So we had to do, to add icons to the data models to help them be able to collect the data. And also, I found there was so much knowledge with these people in the community, because you go and find a carcass and they'll tell you that it is a hyena which predated, and you find that they also feel a gap in helping the accuracy of the data, because I have the knowledge from the university, but I cannot tell you like what is this green zebra. I don't have that knowledge, but the person who is illiterate, they have been living with wildlife all that time, so they are able to. If you have one literate person, then they help them collect the more accurate data. So we had to support them and help them kind of be able to work as a team, whether they have gone to school or they have not gone, and just help them somehow blend. So the opportunity I find that we need to maybe to have, I find like we got very good information. And like now, for example, working with Brave Zebra Trust, I find they have been doing so much with the community, but getting that information to be in a way that is more impactful, or like you can explain even to an older person or a grandmother and they are able to understand, or you can tell a child that this is what we are doing, because you find like most of us scientists, we make information very complex, and being able to like have a range and just display people to people in a very simple way, I think that is where the opportunity comes in, because it should make it more impactful even for the government to be able to buy what we have researched on. Otherwise, I've gone to meetings like the National Spatial Planning, and we somehow don't have something well packaged. So if you have guys who have done like infrastructure planning, like they have already invested a lot of money to doing the roads and all that, and then you start thinking like, no, we don't need a road here. So I think working together and also adopting technology, I think most of these technologies somehow, there's some power in each one of them. So for example, EarthRanger is very good for people without GIS knowledge. Smart is very good for scientific use. We have also like something like ArcGIS online, which is very fantastic in dashboards and making such information to be consumed in a better way. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for that. So I'll come back to you, madam. So in your years of experience, what do you think like, is the most important role that women play in conservation, with either leveraging on their leadership styles or on how they get to handle the challenges, and what is the importance of inclusion of women in conservation?
I'll try
to answer that question, the three questions. And if I leave out some, please remind me. The importance of women leveraging
Women, in conservation.
women in conservation. From the onset, like I said at the beginning, I was introduced to this field at a young age. So my first interactions, especially with the communities, were when men would look at you and say, this child, you're there, you have a program, and I was running a national program called the Wildlife Utilization. It was at the onset of our Community Wildlife Service program in KWS, and you go to a meeting, and they would say, these officers have sent us a child. So I learned to take that in, and I learned to respect the men, because most of the meetings would be attended by men. But at that time, we would be many, and so I didn't take it so personally. But the first time now, I faced it directly, and that's where now the woman in me, I think, showed up, was when I occupied my office as an in-charge, and an elderly person came in and asked me to see the senior warden. He had already seen the secretary, he had asked the secretary, and the secretary had shown him in, and when he got to where I was, he asked me for the senior warden. And I told him to have a seat, and he said, oh, you will call the senior warden? And I told him, you'll be handled. What's your problem? And he looked at me, and he stood, and he walked out. And he went to the administrator, the district officer, and he said he has gone to the wildlife office, and he wanted to see the senior warden, but he found a young girl. And the officer told him, that is the officer who will handle your problem. He never came back. That was my first direct interaction. Then another one followed. A different day, kind of the same style, but this one sat down and listened to me. But he still waited for the senior warden to come, as I talked. We dealt with the issue, and he left. And he left knowing that if he ever came back, the senior warden would deal with him. So after that, then I went out to the meetings. We talked about the role of the woman. I was not harsh on them, but I dealt with the issue. So I went out for the community meetings, and they said, as a child, I would not address them. So I looked for an elderly ranger, somebody who was junior, but was elderly, and we agreed that she would do the introductions. The first thing was the driver was the one who was the man, so he would do the main things when we get there. But then this elderly ranger would speak now to the meeting, and they accepted that. But now when it got to questions, the driver and Diana would not answer. So I answered the questions. And so towards the end of the first meeting, one woman asked, why is it that these officers talk, but when we ask questions, it's this young girl who answers? And so the question was answered. And from there, I have never had problems with the Maasai. This was the Maasai community. I have never had problems with them. We go, we sit with the elderly. I sit in their meetings where there are no women. They will have their women seated at a distance. I'm not sure whether you've seen that. At a distance, but they will allow me to sit with them. and they took me in as their child. And that gave me opportunity. So I worked with the old grammatians, the Shompoles, the group ranges, and we were able to get to an understanding that our wildlife requires both of us, whether you are a girl or you are a boy. You do not have to be a boy to take care of our wildlife. And at the end of it all, my being in office and in a position of authority does not make me a man in my house. I am still a wife, I am still my dad's daughter, and I am still a mother, and that role is complementary. There are times when there are challenges, but as a woman, taking care of conservation enables you to pass that message in a way that is acceptable, in a way that is pleasant, in a way that does not bring conflict in the society. That's what I have learned along the way.
Yeah, they say the leadership of women is totally different, and I think by what you said, that's true, because men tend to be aggressive, but women, when we tap into our motherly instincts, our leadership, it's totally different with men. So, Anne, I'll come to you and ask, you mentioned the support from the management and the colleagues. So generally, what can you say about organization creating the enabling environment for women, especially in remote areas like where you work?
Thank you. From my point of view, the people who you work with, the people who you associate with during your journey are your backbone, or they're your support system. So if you don't have a supportive boss or a supportive management, everything will terrorize or will freeze and you will not be able to work. But if you have someone who holds your hands, who keeps reminding you that you can make it and you have a goal to meet, then everything takes the right way and you're able to work. For my case, how I addressed the challenges that I faced, it's first, I loved what I'm doing. I have the passion for the conservation and everything, biodiversity. So with your passion, you're able to even counter the challenges that you meet because you have a goal to meet at the end of the time. The next thing is appreciating diversity, because everywhere you go, you meet different people with different culture, with different way of doing their things. So first, if you appreciate where you work, the people you are working with, the communities and their cultures, then you are able to work and meet your goal. For my case, after I met those women who have been neglected back in the villages, I went back to the management and told them that we should try looking into having programs that support women. And by this, we were able to draw them closer to us. And as we all know, women are the first people who interact with the environment. They're the same people who go to graze their livestock, fetch firewood, fetch water. So they're the first people who handle the environment compared to men. So if after suggesting on the women programs and empowerment staffs, we were able to drive women more closer, because nowadays, if I go to a Pokot community, which is mostly feared in the northern part of Kenya, at least I have a local name there, and they treat me as one of their own. And we can talk, we can have issues that are touching them, and we are able to address this. So for me, though in Kiswahili they say adui ya mwanamke ni mwanamke mwenzake, I would interpret this like, they say that the enemy of a woman is a woman herself. But if we can change the mentality and have we women supporting other women, then I think we'll go far. And our men too, to support where they can. I think conservation is all about all of us, not a specific gender. It is all of us.
So thank you for that, Anna. So Redemptor, since you have years of experience in technology, using technology in conservation, what can you say is the future of conservation, and what opportunities are there that women can tap into, either education-wise or research-wise, so that they can move with the trend?
Okay, thank you. The future of technology. What I think is, as you've seen, there's so much coming up, but I don't think we have an option of doing things manually as usual. So for sure, we have to adapt, and I think the quickly we are able to adapt, the better for us, and the better we are able to move to more informed decisions. So I think for those people who will adapt, that will go well for them, because looking at all the factors that are on our landscapes, for example, we say that the areas are shrinking, the human population is also growing, and like now in Kenya, the case scenario, the elephants, numbers are increasing, so we got to be very, very accurate in what we get, because if we don't have accurate information, then our decisions will not be as effective as they should be. So I think that adopting technology, we have no choice. We've got to use technology to make our work more effective, and also to enable share what we do, and also appreciate each and everyone, whatever's even if it's in a small way, appreciate what other people are doing, and then bring that together. No competition. So I think that is the future, that people need to work together. We need to work together, and everybody who is doing something, they are important in however small small scale that they are doing it. So I'm so grateful for the government adopting, the government of Kenya adopting EarthRanger, and if they are well able to coordinate that and help build the database, that will be great. I think for women, I would say, from my experience, what I've seen, we need to be more, we need to raise our voice. And I'm usually challenged by men, because anytime you have a job, as women we are we read all the requirements of the job, and for a man, if they have just one skill, they are like, yes, I can do it. Yeah. So I think it's a challenge to us to always I think we believe in ourselves, and then have a positive attitude. And even if I had a former boss who told me, and I think that really impacted me. He told me, if you get an opportunity and somebody asks you, will you be able to do this? Say yes, and then you'll figure out how to do it. And actually, by that it works. I believe in attitude. I believe in taking initiative, and not waiting for you to be told, do this, do that. And I think that is how I've been able to grow. Okay. Thank you, Madam Catherine, because she always used to carry me through her meetings. She used to call me and tell me, Remember, can you, because she used to see me have some interest in data. So when she's going for meetings, she used to carry me along with her. And she'd take me to the car, then go to the Abadeas. Every time she need a GPS coordinator, I'll go and take for her, do a simple map. And I'm just thinking even if you're carried even just to do a very small thing, it gives you such an opportunity and exposure. And I think even for us, if we do mentorship, even for the people who are behind us, I think it's a great thing. Today I'm impressed by Anne. We've learned so much from her, and I'm really grateful because of what she's doing. So I think there is so much opportunity. Let's, as women and even as men, let's support each other, and also let's be open-minded. And let's believe in ourselves. let's say yes, when you get an opportunity, then you figure out somehow, because there's never a correct way. Yeah, because I found we always get like a lower bargaining power most of the times, and we got this kind of royalty thing, like I have to volunteer, I have to, and then I'm thinking like next year is when I'll ask for a pay rise, but man, I tell you, they can't have that patience to like wait at the end of the year to ask for a pay rise, and why? And we are doing most of the work. And also, I think because I worked with a lot of interns, I feel like women actually complete tasks, but men always like, most of the men will ask for a pay, and that is how we get, I think for us women, let's challenge ourselves. Let's not wait for too long, let's communicate. And even for what Anne has said about children, like when I got a baby, I think you need to ask, like, can I work like this and these hours? Instead of sometimes maybe just keeping quiet and not saying like, maybe you are suffering, you need to go back to your home, you know, not stay for longer hours in the field. I think, I think that would really, really help us. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that, Redempta. We have a few minutes to take questions.
Yes.
So I'd actually like to, we have a, I don't have to yell. So with Wildlife Crime Prevention in Zambia, we have a Women for Conservation program. So it would be really awesome. That's to mentor young Zambian women who want to go into the conservation field, learn more about it, etc. It'd be awesome if anyone's interested to link you guys with them, just so they can also see a different perspective, different story of how, you know, the challenges, everything else that comes with it. So yeah, if anyone's keen for that, I can see you after. But one thing I find it goes along with everything that was said there is that, you know, I have a man brain. And I think like a man, right? And it goes along with that kind of having, you know, increasing your understanding and having those discussions. And there's obviously going to be things that are taboo and, you know, that you don't talk about. You don't need to know every detail, don't get me wrong. And obviously, you know, you maintain that respect. But it's when you have those conversations, you actually start to understand something. And that's that man brain. So, you know, it's really cool to see across conservation there's things like all-female ranger forces, which is good. But you've got to be careful of things like man brain. Because what happens if like 5 rangers are pregnant within a month? Man brain doesn't think of the plans around that and how people are actively employed, and then what happens when there's young rangers who have kids but they're in the field for 21 days. Man brain doesn't think that. So it's those open discussions, but also, you know, having that female leadership in there, because that covers it. Don't have to worry about the man brain then when it's women in leadership, and I think it's positive. It's really good to see everywhere that that's increasing now, because it is important. And I guess the kind of final point goes along with that too is that the kind of NGO versus government perspective, where NGOs aren't as rigid, they're more diverse, they want more diversity, and, you know, for any NGO supporting and incapacitating a government partner where there are female officers, rangers, you're going to see stuff you don't like, and it's how you address that with whatever power you have as well, and that's just difficult. But again, that's also that man brain side. So yeah, that's as destructive as that can be. So that's really cool to see, really cool stories. Thank you very much.
Oh, hi guys. Thank you so much for having this forum. So my question was to the panelists. Have you ever had like sexual harassment, like in the line of work, and how do you handle that?
Hi. It is a reality at some level, but as a woman, you have to be firm. I remember as a young officer, there were ladies who would say to me, Catherine, never go to that office. Even if that officer calls you, don't go, or go with somebody. And I thought, okay, I didn't know what it meant at that particular time, but today I look back and I appreciate them. On one occasion, in a town called Nanyuki. I was in the company of 2 elderly officers, and we were working. And where we were putting up one of the hotels there, the women around planned to beat me. And the argument was, how can this young woman have 2 men to herself? And I had no idea because they didn't speak the language. I didn't know. Okay, today they can do that because I know the language now. So these men, I noted that when we were walking, they would make sure I was walking in their midst. They were elderly men.
They were your colleagues.
Yeah, they were my colleagues, but they were older and senior, and I was working with them. It was not until we went back that I noted the danger that I had been exposed to and how they had protected me. Okay? So there are those men who will harass you, not because they are men, but because of their personal characters. There are also women who will harass you because you're a woman. And some will harass you because you're younger. Some will harass you because you're like taking their opportunities. They see you as a threat. And so I think it's a personality issue. It's not just a man issue. It's a personality issue. And so be firm, be persistent, and I think once you choose your path, please walk in it and passionately do that which is expected of you. And you will find that even those who are willing to harass you will stop, because then you can look at a man and tell him, no, that's not the way. And if you persist beyond this, I will report you, because there's always somebody senior who will listen to you. You just need to find out who that is. Yes, it exists, but it can be dealt with. And today, the environment at work, especially in the government, is very favorable. There are laws about sexual harassment at work. So today, the law is there to support you. There before it wasn't as much, but today it's available.
We can take 1 or 2 more questions.
Thank you. My name is Jacob. So, first of all, I just want to just comment that it was both gender parity, at least to have a man in the panel. Yeah, so 2 questions. How do you in conservation, most of the time we work with communities that have kind of the gender role is actually split. So I just wanted to ask, how do you handle that without necessarily affecting the culture? Because sometimes it's a culture issues, and with due respect, sometimes you have to respect the way people are and the way the cultures that people have. For example, in northern Kenya, there are certain things that women do and certain things that men do, and they respect each other in that level. But how do you maximize the conservation impact to women while respecting their cultures? Secondly, how do you, there's certain, in conservation there's work that, not, I don't mean in a bad way, but there, it's more men kind of oriented. For example, rangers, being conservancy rangers. I was doing a research last year that you find that in the whole, there are over 4,000 conservancy rangers around Kenya, and only about 3% women conservancy rangers. The rest of the 97% are men. And sometimes when you engage them, they just say there are certain things that you can't give a woman to do. You can't count in a right. I mean that's their comment. So how can we increase that number? How can we have more women to be conservancy rangers and take on roles that actually men can do, given the nature of work that conservation requires.
He wants to take a look.
Thank you. I won't give you the right answer maybe from what you've asked, but I'll attempt to answer your question, especially on the culture and how you mingle and get to reach into women matters conservation. First, I've worked with communities where I work, and the first thing that we did, or what the management helped us, is winning the trust of the community people. Once you win their trust, and once they notice that you are there to help them on a goodwill, not to criticize what they do, they definitely accept you and accept what you're doing. And for this case, like from where I work, we involve the government agencies that are there, or the administrative powers that are there. So you'll find for any information to get to the community, you have to contact the chiefs, the village elders, and then from the village elders, you can have the barazas, or those meetings. And for those meetings, I promise you, men will attend in high numbers compared to women, or if women attend, they'll segregate or seclude themselves in a certain place, and then men will come on the front. In some instances, you're not allowed to speak where men are. But if they win your trust, you use the same men who are there to reach the message to the same women you are working with. And like, I'll say this, like we noticed that they have this, they don't practice the family planning methods, and that's why we find sometimes they're in high poverty levels. But if you start by training the men and they understand the importance of doing the family planning, they will allow you to mingle with their women and teach them or enlighten them on the agenda that you want to drive. That's the approach we use. Yeah.
Thank you. I just want to add on to that. I think as a change agent, you do not go into any community with the intention of changing their culture. And I think that's the first thing you need to. It's not your agenda to change the culture. And so work with them, and you'll find there will be an entry point. You will find an entry point. Accept them the way they are, you will find room. Today I can say to the Pokot, you've taken your sons to school, please take also your daughters to school. And they're happy to answer me and say, oh, the girls are going to school, we need the boys to carry the guns and look after the livestock. So today we can have that exchange. And so I think one of the priority things that we need to do is let's not go with the intention of changing their culture. People value their culture, and as you interact, they will over time notice the things that are not positive and useful, and those ones will be dropped along the way. Gender roles. It is true. There are things that I will not do, that a man will do. There are things that a man will do, that a woman will do, that a man will never do. As a woman, I carry a baby. I carry a pregnancy, 9 months. Which man is willing to do that? And so when we are working, let us build on the positive. I mean, we were created beautifully. Each one of us wonderful, isn't it? So let us do that which we were created to do, and do it diligently and in an excellent way to complement one another, that this generation will benefit from the skills, from the endowment of the gifts that God has given us. And if we go out with that attitude, for sure we will change the narrative, especially about the conflict with wildlife, isn't it?
Yeah.
So that we don't just change the narrative in writing, but we go out, even with the communities, and say, yes, it is possible for people to live with wildlife peacefully, harmoniously, and enjoy this world. Thank you.
So sorry, ladies. I think we have to end the session now, but if you want to say like a few last words, I'm really sorry. There's no more time for questions, unfortunately. We've got the next session. So sorry.
Okay. She's telling me to talk about a little bit about human-wildlife conflict.
Yeah, like how you handle that with the community.
Okay, yeah, my experience with human-wildlife conflict, I think when you get to the field and to the site, it's a bit different from what we see on the reports and such. So I think one of the important things is just to make us just feel like we are part of them, and also to be there. Because I found like in some of the regions where I come from, it is very hard to interact with an elephant. But sometimes when you go and see the damage they have caused, a child in Nairobi will not have the same story about elephants like a child who have lived in northern Kenya. So getting to better understand them, and also I think something that has really helped is to make community part of the solution, and even training and also employment. Sometimes we've done human-elephant conflict mitigation, and we have like Space for Giants used to employ all the fence managers from the community. So I think that is usually a plus, because people will protect what they feel that they get value from. So making people have the community get some value from conservation, I think that is one of the most important things to do.
Yeah, so thank you guys for showing up to our discussion, and also thank you so much to these wonderful ladies for agreeing to be part of this panel, especially Madam and Redempta, since it was last minute. Yeah, so thank you for coming, and I hope you learned something, and you can find us for more discussion during the networking session later on.